Many folks are disappointed that Joe Biden called the success, and I will say it too, the success in Afghanistan a success today. It was a success. How was it a success? Simply by us leaving Afghanistan. It was a success. Some people are complaining that we left a mess. We did not leave a mess. The mess, if anything, us leaving was us cleaning up a mess that was created by President George W. Bush, expanded on by Barack Hussein Obama, and further expanded on by Donald J. Trump and their Zionist handlers. That was what happened. Okay? Us leaving, simply leaving, was a success. And Joe Biden is a success where all of those other presidents, where Donald Trump, Obama, and Bush are miserable failures. Absolutely miserable failures. Okay? Now, some people are complaining about some of the mistakes made by the military and foisting that onto Joe Biden. Ultimately, yes, Joe Biden is the commander-in-chief. Ultimately, what I would like to say is Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Barack Hussein Obama, and George W. Bush all put too much trust in a military made up of the enemies of this country. We had this proven to us during the time of Donald Trump's presidency, where Donald Trump wanted to invoke the Insurrection Act due to the situation with Black Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter declaring war on the United States government. And General Mark Milley, who is a communist sympathizer, as you can tell by the paper he wrote to get his degree. And I'll leave a link to Wikipedia, which also leaves a link to his profile and also a link to that paper. So it's on guerrilla warfare for political change, okay? So Mark Milley is a communist radical. And it's interesting because I was planning on doing, and I might just merge the two right now. I was planning on doing a video on Cuomo pardoning a member of the Weathermen. As we know, Barack Hussein Obama and many on the left are friends with radical communist terrorists from the 1960s. But first, let me focus on the Biden situation. The fault of the military is not being brought up enough. Now, there was one Marine that brought up the fault of the military, that nobody's throwing their rank on the table and telling these generals, maybe we should have held on to the military air base. Simply because now we have to use a civilian airbase, which is currently under attack now and easier to attack. Maybe we should have destroyed the weapons before letting them fall into the hands of the Taliban, Russia, and China. Yes, I agree with all of that. I agree that the generals have betrayed the United States. That's true. They betrayed the United States under George W. Bush. They betrayed the United States under Barack Hussein Obama. And they most certainly betrayed the United States under Donald Trump when Donald Trump was trying to invoke the Insurrection Act. And Mark Milley and Esper and these other people pitched a shit fit. And Donald Trump made zero appeal to the people. Didn't get rid of these people, made zero appeal to the American people to explain the situation the way it was and the necessity of calling out the military to gain control of the country. We lost whole cities under those riots. Whole cities burnt to the ground, basically, and or taken over by terrorists. And these are people that were attacking federal courthouses, police stations, etc. What was the answer? Oh, this is no worse than the 1960s civil rights riots. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And there's photographic evidence and video evidence to prove that it was. Okay? So we were betrayed by Mark Milley, the Esper dude, and all these other people. Okay? So what is my point? My point is Joe Biden is 100% right to call the leaving of Afghanistan a success in and of itself. Let us not forget that it was the being bogged down and pouring all their money and resources into Afghanistan and instead of the Soviet Union that basically broke the back of the Soviet Union. Do you want to see the United States have our back broken? Because we're working on it. we're spreading our resources too thinly, and we have situations much closer to home in Venezuela, Cuba, even in Mexico in some ways. There are much closer areas that we have to worry about. We also have responsibilities to the Organization of American States to supply regional stability and regional economic and human rights and everything else inside the Americas. I think it's high time that the United States focuses its immense power back onto this region of the world and back onto its own people, as opposed to a group of people in a country that is resistant to democracy. I thought it was interesting that Mexico brought in a group of they were cybernetics or robotics experts from Afghanistan, a group of girls. Now, what's funny is Mexico's smart enough to only take the girls and women. What do you want to bet the United States takes every useless invalid and useless person from Afghanistan and puts them all around the country? Okay, this is not Biden's fault. This is a situation that predates Biden, and it's unfortunate that Biden isn't doing more to fix it, but can you really blame him? This is just the situation of how our government has dealt with things at that point. That's since Bill Clinton with Bosnia. That's how we deal with these situations. We go in, we try to fix a country that's unfixable because of the backwards nature of the people, and then we bring the worst of them back to our country and hope for the best. It doesn't work that way. That's not how you fix our country. Our country is in pain. There's people in our country starving to death. There's people in our country that are homeless. There's certainly people in our country that cannot get decent medical treatment, but yet for some reason we have some unseen responsibility to help the whole world. And I'm going to actually leave a link to David Yeagley, who is a Native American nationalist that spoke on this, the issues with immigration and whatnot. I'm going to leave a couple of those links in the description. But also, back to the Cuomo thing. We are well aware that Cuomo, well, actually I was not aware, but Cuomo allowed this gentleman to basically apply for parole now when he wouldn't have been able to. He's 70-something years old now. But this gentleman was partially responsible for the murder of a number of a security guard and I believe 2 police officers as a member of the terrorist group, the Weathermen. We also know that Barack Hussein Obama was good friends with Bill Ayers and what's her name? That Dorn. I forget her first name. Something Dorn. But we know that the radical left in this country, from Barack Obama to Nancy Pelosi to now even Andrew Cuomo, which I wasn't guessing Cuomo, but even Andrew Cuomo are buddy-buddy with these violent, vicious, anti-American communists. And it was funny because I was talking with a friend of mine who's so mad that we left Afghanistan and Afghanistan fell apart. And I did finally get her to see things my way. But she was complaining about how the United States intervention in El Salvador to fight communism resulted in a bloodbath. Okay, I've brought up, because I was planning on going to Argentina, I learned a lot about Argentina, okay? And there was something called the Dirty War during the presidency of Isabel Perón. And during this war, the United States was lambasted for supporting the Peronist regime under Isabel Perón. And it's called the Dirty War because of some of the tactics used by the fascist Peronists against the communists. What you never hear mentioned is the imperialism, the violent imperialism against other Latin American countries by the Cubans. You don't hear about that. Castroism committed violent acts of imperialism in Latin America. Okay? You never hear anybody lambasting Cuba for the role that they played in these bloodbaths in places like El Salvador or in Argentina. You also don't hear people holding the Catholic Church responsible, as many bishops and folks in the Catholic Church, high-ranking Catholic Church officials, supported the Cuban the Cuban regime, okay, the Castroist regime, and wanted the spread of liberation theology to create a bloc of militant communist Catholics all throughout Latin America, and eventually to usurp the United States. Okay, that was the goal of these things. Nobody ever talks about this. Nobody talks about the fact that the United States, as the only superpower in the Americas, has a responsibility due to Pan-Americanism, due to the Organization of American States, to lend its strength, to lend its resources, to lend its military capacity for peacekeeping missions, to fight narco-terrorism, to fight these communist regimes, to fight the disorder in the Americas. Nobody mentions that. It's always, oh, these poor people, American intervention led to a bloodbath and da-da-da-da-da. No, it would have been a bloodbath regardless of whether or not the United States intervened in these areas. The reason the United States intervened in these areas is we have a responsibility to our fellow American countries. It's in that agreement, okay? And I'll leave a link to the Order of American States Charter. So, and it's also under the concept of Pan-Americanism. But the fact of the matter is, you hear a lot of whining about what America should do, and how America should do this differently, and America should do that differently. What the hell do you expect? You can't force people to become a democracy, okay? You can't. Because then it fails to be a democracy, now doesn't it? If the United States went into Afghanistan, completely obliterated everyone we could obliterate, and forced people to have freedom of religion, and forced people, we would be more like the USSR than we would the United States. Not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but the United States needs to focus its attention on this part of the world, not other parts of the world. Okay, and a lot of people will go, oh, well, the United States this and the United States that. I've had it up to my fucking eyeballs in hearing about what the United States should and should not do. We give the most humanitarian aid out of any country. We don't have strings attached like China does. When China gives humanitarian aid, there's strings attached, okay? China isn't just giving away free stuff like the United States does because they're not stupid. And that's one of the things Trump was right about. The leadership of this country is absolutely, completely stupid. Completely stupid. We are giving away American resources, we are giving away American money, and we are losing American lives to the enemies of this country in the support of other people that are ungrateful and do not reciprocate the support that we've given them. And that just seems to be the case. And in my opinion, yes, Afghanistan was hands down a success simply because we lost. Some people I know are concerned because we didn't destroy the weapons that we had there. We had a number of very expensive military weapons that are now in the possession of the Taliban and other forces. Yes, that's concerning. What's really concerning is whether China or Russia get a hold of them and reverse engineer the technology. That's always a possibility, probably a probability more than anything else. But the facts are the facts. Simply leaving Afghanistan made Afghanistan a success. It makes out of all those presidents, Donald Trump, Barack Hussein Obama, George W. Bush, and Joe Biden, and makes Joe Biden the best president out of all four of them. The best. He's the best, hands down. Why? Because he stopped this parasitic leech that was sucking the lifeblood out of our republic. That's why Biden, out of all those presidents, is hands down the most successful. And that's all for this video.